Then and we'll try.
Okay.
I don't know what I have with the light here.
You are now in charge, Ludmila.
Okay, so I see people joining in as we speak. So since I introduced myself in the beginning and you have my name there, it's easy to figure out who I am, more or less. And as I said, we had a fantastic, despite everything bad that
Ludmila,
was
you
happening
have
and
to,
lots of terrible things.
explain to people that it's not Ludmila Putina. It's
Oh, yeah,
another
yeah,
Ludmila.
yeah. If I had a penny for every time you make this joke, Sebastian. Oh, oi. So this is I wanted first to mention that among the bad things, very sad things that happened this year to all of us was the death of our founding member, Claire White, founding mother, I wanted to say, Claire White, who was the poet, the spirit, the both spiritus movens of the whole thing, and then the voice of reason in the later years. So this particular issue that we are presenting right now is also celebrating her. Unfortunately, we have only one poem by Claire. This is a translation of a Hungarian poem by Tamás, who I hope also joined us or could join us. We'll get to it later during our program. I wanted to open again by thanking everybody who participated, all the poets who submitted, everybody who participated in reading, checking, and also the very important, our featured artist, Shain, whom I can see here, hopefully, and the background is one of your beautiful paintings. Yep, I know you're muted,
I
but
am absolutely honored to be here. And
thank
I've
you
been
very much. You made this issue of the magazine really special. And as I said, we started with Claire, since it's devoted partly to Claire. It's such an important part because she really appreciated the artwork so much. So I wanted to thank all the members of the White family. And I see on my screen Sylvia, of course, whom I already greeted. I think Laura and Christian, who is, oh, Camilla. Camilla is there, right? And Ben, right? If I missed somebody, please.
You missed Ruben.
Oh, I missed. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, of course. Hola, Ruben. So I'm if I missed anybody in personal greetings, I hope we'll get to your personal participation later. We in this particular, you know what? Before Mindy, I start to feel bad, substituting for her. So I will say maybe a few things that I was supposed to say anyway. To all the poets who joined us, we are planning to have a special issue of the magazine, which will not be really magazine of the compilation of the poems for the competition or for the contest, celebrating Claire and her poetry. So if anybody knows or would like to write a poem in one way or the other relating to Claire and your relationship with Claire, you're very much welcome. That's one information. The second information is that also we had a group of new sponsors who decided to fund another prize, and it will be a poetry prize. So we will be from next year giving two prizes. One will be the main Oberon prize, and the second will be a prize. It will be $500 given to a poem, which, since the prize is called the Herbert Prize, and it's funded to celebrate the poetry of a fabulous Polish poet, Zbigniew Herbert. It will be given for something that he celebrated, which means what he called the semantic transparency, for poems deceptively simple, where words serve as the windows to really strong emotional content. This all will be in much, much more coherent details presented on our website. So don't worry, we'll get all the information if anybody feels that they are writing like Herbert, right? So these are my few pieces of the info that we had to get out of the way. And first, I think I would like to give, oh, Shain disappeared. Oh, okay. Because, well, so before we have Shain, our future artist, I will give the word to Laura Ross, who will say also a few words as the from in the name or whatever, representing the Oberon Foundation as such, and also our beautiful
By
contest.
the way, Ludmila, I wanted to let you know that Thomas Chorgo, the Hungarian physicist that you and I were discussing, or
Yep.
he's
Oh,
on.
Tamas. Oh, then before I pass the speaking mic to Laura, I wanted to, yes, I see Tamas. So hello, Tamas. We are really, 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 really grateful that you could join us, because as I said, your poem in Hungarian is the last piece of translation that Claire did, and we are very honored that we could publish it in this particular issue of the magazine. And also I wanted to share with everybody that Tamas is a fantastic, fantastic physicist who was at the head of a team that discovered something absolutely, absolutely breathtaking. And I hope he will tell us in really few days ago. So I hope he will tell us few words about it, because he wrote also a poem about it recently. So, and now I pass the word to Laura, and then let's keep the order that we had before, and then I would like Shain to say a few words about her artwork, especially these pieces that are presented in the magazine. Okay, Laura.
Hi.
Am I supposed to? Ah, you're unmuted. Good. Everything
Yeah.
works.
No, we're not. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I want to welcome everybody. I'm one of the co-editors of the Oberon magazine and the director of the Oberon Foundation, which is an hosts the Oberon Poetry magazine. And I just this year, I'm sorry that we don't have our cheese and crackers and wine.
And wine. We had Oberon wine always. Yep.
But everybody probably has that at home. So, but this year's especially I mean, of course, because of Claire, and it's devoted, this issue is devoted to Claire. It's also very special because of this year, and that everyone was so amazing about sending in poems and getting them in, and they're so interesting, and that art goes on no matter what's happening out there in the world. And it's been really emotional reading these poems and handing them to the judges, and I just want to thank you all for continuing to be part of Oberon Poetry magazine. And Mindy and Ludmila have done such an amazing job this year.
Oh, thank you.
And I just very, very thankful that we're still together and that this special edition is out.
And since you have the mic, we will continue with Christian and ask him to say a few words about Claire. You wrote such a beautiful, beautiful piece for this issue.
Yeah, actually, I hardly feel I could take credit for that because of all the people who helped and who had already done so much of the research and legwork. So I wanted to really make a big deal about thanking everyone at Oberon, especially Kathy and Ludmila, Mindy, Jan, and especially Sylvia, who was the only, let's say, first person I could check facts from earlier in Claire's life, and most of all Oral Protopescu, who really was very kind to let me source so much of it from hers. I afterwards regretted that I hadn't made it a more personal memory. So I thought I'd read a poem of Claire's, which has a personal connection. In 1968, my sister Natalie and I went with my parents to live in Rome for a year. And I had been born there. So Claire kind of reintroduced me to Rome and all these special places in Rome. And I did a lot of ink drawings of the city, and she did some poems, and we did a little chapbook. I wanted to read one of the poems from that book, and it's called Reluctant Litany. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but it's basically a list of all of the churches in Rome that are dedicated to Santa Maria, to Mary. So, Reluctant Litany. Mary's parlors glow with golden knickknacks. Welcome, she says, a perfect hostess. Mary in the garden, on the road, on the hill, over the bridge, across the Tiber, in the chapel, on the stairs, of the angels, of the soul, of the people, the ancient, the new, the Egyptian, the trivial, the major. Which of them has the power to mend a kidney, a shin bone, or a stone heart? Mary of the well, the snows, the sun, the painted caves, the ship, the fevers, the furnaces, the tears, the seven dolors. A glittering sword pierces the voluptuous sheath of her heart. She thrones marble skulled in black velvet and gold. Mary of a good death, how morning becomes a spider eyeing its prey. Then, transfigured, triumphant, victorious, of peace, liberator, the glorious, inevitable Mary, in spite of everything, pray for us.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Christian. And thank you, Claire, of course. As you might have noticed, we unfortunately do not have with us.
It doesn't have to do with us.
We do not have with us the judge who moved upstate New York and disappeared from the Wi-Fi and the internet access and the phone access, and Mindy didn't manage to track him down. So I will just maybe pass it to Aurel, who's our winner, whom he picked. Or maybe, well, would you like me to read what he said? Because normally he would present, his
Yes.
judge's statement, but I think it's someone who's, I will not give really justice to his very equiloquent piece. So maybe I will ask someone.
On the person who's speaking?
Really, yes.
On the person who's speaking?
Yeah, like for example, back to Laura. Why don't you have it, or you don't have it open? You don't have it. Okay, I'm reading it.
I don't have it
Okay.
open. It's on
Philip
you.
You have it?
No.
Okay, so I'm reading Phil Asaph's statement about his judgment this year, okay? It was an honor to judge the Oberon Poetry Contest and a challenge to choose the poem for first place. I enjoyed so much of the work and was often moved by the love of poetry that came through the lines of so many different voices, different minds. Frequently, while reading or rereading, I found myself thinking, I wish I had written that. In the end, I selected Boxes, a beautiful, subtle, restrained, and yet emotional work as this year's winner, followed very closely by several other honorable mentions, all of which I believe to be fine poems in their own right, on their own terms. But boxes kept quietly demanding my attention, kept calling me back to it until it made me forget my age, my gender, my personal history, and my own distinctive family sorrows. It made me feel more human and grateful to the poet who gave me that feeling. Because winning and losing, usually losing, poetry competitions is a lifelong experience of mine, it felt wonderful to think of what the winner might feel when notified. But it was also a bit saddening to think of the other outstanding poets who did not receive first place honor. I have a sense, though, that they already deeply know that making poetry, because one loves to and has to, is the real joy one achieves, and that it far exceeds any form of external success at all. Many interesting and excellent works are in this issue. We are in good and inspiring company. I hope the reader will enjoy these poems as much as I have and continue to contribute a voice to the chorus. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful introduction to a wonderful poem by Aurel Protopopescu, who's the winner of the contest already for the second time. Okay, now Sebastian, we have to unmute Aurel, or did you unmute?
I unmuted myself. And
Super.
oh, I am so deeply touched by what Phil wrote. I'm more moved by that than my own poem. I mean, it's just magnificent, even though writing this poem made me cry. And I hope it doesn't make all of you cry when I read it. First, I wanted to thank everyone in Oberon. I was quite astonished to win because, as Ludmila said, I had won before in 2010. And forgive me if you know this story, but I feel like sharing it for those who didn't hear it. My people who know me, and I have friends here today, probably heard me tell this story before, but it connects to Claire in a way that you'll understand in a few minutes. When I was, I guess, 13, I was a year early in high school. That was my first year of high school. And I wrote a poem that by chance, it was published in my school literary magazine. And a British journalist who was touring the United States on a mission to discover teenage poets for some reason, she wrote a piece in a British newspaper in which she called me a simple poetic genius. That is the highest praise I've ever had in my life for myself as a poet. And then 4 years later, I was a freshman in college and I took poetry writing with a poet named, well, I won't give his name, but he's not famous and nobody reads him anymore. But I took a class with him and he told me my maiden name was Odinov. It's a Russian name. And he said, you have fantasy, Miss Odinov, but no imagination, which to me was something I had to puzzle over for a while to figure out. And when I understood it, I was absolutely horrified. And I stopped writing poetry. I wrote a lot of other things. Some of you who know me know I write children's books. This year, actually, at the age of, I'm almost 74, I'll be 74 in May, I wrote my first biography of the dancer Tanakia Leclerc. It's called Dancing Past the Light, and it will be published by University Press of Florida at the end of August. And it's already been posted and I got great blurbs for it. And it's a first for me, which proves that at any age you can reinvent yourself. So those of you that are my age or even older, if you've been working on a book for 20 years, and I have a novel I've been working on for 30 years, it's time you dust it off and go to it. You never know. And I still write children's books and poems.
And
So,
as someone who participated in the editorial process of the book, I have to say it's a fantastic book. Even if you don't know anything about ballet, it's a fabulous, live, fantastic book. And it's already on Amazon for pre-paying.
oh, really? I'm not advertising for sales.
Yeah,
but-
that's why I'm doing it.
But I have to say that Ludmila is my best critic because when I write, I pass everything through her because she is, if you have a flaw anywhere, she will find it. And she also has a knack for telling you what you need to do to make it better. And so, you know, a lot of the time I do depend on her advice. Anyway,
Thank you.
I-
So, yep.
as do other people. But long before I knew,
Meeting.
long before I knew that about Ludmila, I want to get back to Claire. I want to get back to Claire.
Typing the wrong thing.
Because
Unacrylic clay.
even before I met Ludmila, I met Jackie Raven, a dancer, and with Claire White, we had a little writing group, and we would meet every week. And it was Claire who revived the poet in me. And this was a good 20 years or so after I had stopped writing poetry because I just lost the impulse somehow. And yet it was my first love as a child, and she revived that. And Claire is really the mother of me as a poet, and perhaps of many other people too. And always loved Claire for that and so many other reasons. And so the amazing thing is that then they founded Oberon. And as you know, the judging is always anonymous. The editors and assistant editors will go through all the poems and choose, usually about 80 or 90, I don't know how many they choose, but everything goes to the judge. And the judge reads them anonymously, doesn't know whose they are. And yet here I am, the person who had no imagination. And one of my first wins in Oberon wasn't a first prize, but it was in the early years, for some reason they graded the honorable mentions. So I got a first honorable mention. That was my first win. And that was Louis Simpson, who was a Pulitzer Prize winning poet. And that was a kind of validation for me. And then I won first prize in 2010. I won other honorable mentions other years. And this year, my second.
Now here, I'm going to do my very harsh editing and ask you really to move on and to read the poem, because we
Okay,
have
you see why I
such
need her.
rich program, Aurel.
So I'm
We can
going
back
to-
to it. We can go back to
No,
it.
that's it. That's all I
later,
had to say. But
okay?
you see how essential she is. Okay, so she's just done a little demonstration of why we rely on Ludmila. Okay, I'm going to read my poem, Boxes, and I hope I don't cry before I get to the end.
For those of you who have the issue of the magazine, it's on page 15.
And it's very personal. And I guess I follow Herbert's dictum because it's simple and yet it's full of emotion. But Ludmila, you'll have to explain to me later the nuances of the Herbert.
I
dictum.
will.
Okay, boxes. My sisters and I bent to the task, penitence hunched over the keys of our upright piano, a box where music lived in fervent bursts until we banged it shut. Our mother polished that box and paid for it with her life of early to work, late to bed, teaching children too poor for pianos. We played to make up for what they lacked, our love for music growing with the tumors in her breasts, the bags under her eyes, which I always imagined packed with tears. On late, late nights, when we longed for sleep, we sat upon the piano bench, her jury box of 3, backs turned to the keys, and listened to the charges, our father's not so petty crimes, gambling, lying, failing to call home, and it was guilty, guilty on all counts. After my sisters left home, I played alone, trying to avoid the broken keys that a hamster had gnawed, riding the bus each week back to the 19th century of my teacher's house, dark with wood, bright with crystal, and infused with incense, like a Russian church. He tapped out the rhythms on my back as my fingers marched like soldiers across a plain of black and white. Some days, to reward my work, he played with me. Racing to keep up, I felt as powerful and grand as his 2 pianos, side by side, black and shiny as hearses, their lids wide open. I was grateful for the sturdy floor that held them, for the velvet curtains that silenced all distractions, for the exhilaration of tracing familiar patterns with fingers that had learned how to outrun my brain while my family slipped through the cracks. I played until I turned 16, the year my mother was buried in a plain pine box. Then all the notes blurred and I banged the lid shut.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aurel.
She's impossible, but she's pretty good.
This is, yeah, we cannot hear. You can see that people are applauding. Unfortunately, we cannot unmute everybody. Now
I'll
we
mute
have,
myself. I have said enough.
Wonderful.
oh, you muted yourself. Okay, so we have two honorable mentions this year. This is Mark Wagner and Alan Elishevitz. And I thought I saw Alan among the people who checked in, but I cannot see him right now. And I don't see Mark either, which means that in the meantime, since we changed the order a little bit, and since Alan's poem is accompanied by the wonderful, wonderful piece by Shain, I would like Shain to unmute herself and say a little bit about her artwork.
Before that, Ludmila, I want to make a kind of programming comment.
Okay.
Even though I've transferred hosting to you, I never know what these Zoom guys are going to do to us. I'm on a computer which will run out of battery in about 25 minutes.
Okay.
I have another computer, but I don't have a charger. So if we get disconnected, anybody, just try again to log into Zoom, the same link 5 minutes later, and everything should be fine. I don't think it's going to cause a problem, but I just want to have a plan in case something goes wrong. Okay?
Okay. 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 There will. This is our first time, and as I said, there will be glitches. But
okay. Bye.
I think it still is wonderful to see everybody and to be able to put wonderful faces and personalities on the personalities of the poems that we received. So, Shain, if I could ask you to say a few words about your art.
Okay, thank you, Ludmila. And first of all, I'd just like to say first to Aurel.
Could you be so kind and speak up a little?
Can you hear me? No?
Now it's better. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I just want to say to Aurel, I was so utterly touched by your poem. And I have my own piano story, which I'm not going to tell you right now. But it just brought out feelings in me that I'm very grateful for the cathartic for your poem. It was absolutely beautiful. And I'm really at a loss that Mindy, my dear Mindy, who invited me to be the featured artist here today, is not here. And she assured me I'm not good at this whole Zoom thing. I'm learning as you are all apparently. She was just going to ask me questions and so on. So I'm going to have to wing it a little more than I thought here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
perfect.
By the way, I also Christian, right? I am such a fan of yours. I don't think we know each other. We haven't met, but I'm a big fan of yours. All right. And I also am so sorry to hear that Philip is not going to be here because Philip and I go way back when he had been a BOCES teacher, and he took some of his students to the winners of an art show that I happened to be in. And each student was asked to either write a poem or make a dance or a theater piece about one of the paintings. And Philip chose my painting. And it was an absolutely beautiful collaboration. And so Philip, I'm sorry you're not there. Okay, so now I'm on my own here. Oh, I also wanted to say about when Mindy told me that my paintings would not necessarily be, I thought it would be very ekphrastic, where people would be writing about my poems, like my experience with Phil. But it wasn't, this is not that at all, which is fine. But I just want to say, I do have a copy of it. By the way, this is the painting that is next to Claire's beautiful, beautiful tribute. And I was looking for connections between my paintings and the poems, of course. And this first page absolutely knocked me out of the ballpark.
Being about
Because first reading about this woman, Claire Nicholas White, who you all know, but I do not know, I was just flabbergasted, and all I could think of was, boy, I wish I had met this woman. But I did not. And I wanted to notice that I'd just like to read the last words in the tribute to her.
child speaking. Yeah. Well, she's older than one thinks. Yes. Older than she looks.
Okay. If you should hear us passing in the night, this is from her poem, The Wind, that the person who wrote the tribute. Open the window and turn off the light. No need to go. The wind is where I went, beyond the trees, beyond the broken land.
Yes. Yes.
So I just was trying to, I thought I would just write a few words about Claire, who I never met. It's not a poem. I wouldn't call this a poem amongst you people, but it's just a couple of just how I was feeling. So this is dedicated to Claire. What a dynamo of light you've left us. I only wish I could have met you. But then I realized that I have, right here, right now, as we've been put together, page to page. My single candle flame to humbly honor your great blaze of light. We're together. We can ride that wind beyond the trees, the broken land, in art's eternal glaze. So thank you, Claire.
You're
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shain. It was really very, very moving. And the artwork, I highly recommend you. If you, as I said, if you haven't seen the magazine, please just take a look, right?
It's coming.
And
It's coming in the mail this week.
Ludmila, you might tell Sylvia to mute her.
I muted
Yes.
Sylvia. I used my power and muted Sylvia already, but I will unmute her.
Please
and-
mute your button, Sylvia.
we did mute Sylvia. So now, since Mindy provided me with a list of people who send emails that they would like to read, but I do not think that everybody on the list is present. So I will go down the list. The list was formed as chronologically, in the chronology of how people responded. And therefore, the first person that I have from people present here is Jacqueline Griffin, or Griffin. I don't know if I pronounce your word properly.
Griffin, yes.
Griffin. If you could be so kind, the poem, Jacqueline's poem is on page 85, if you have the magazine. If you could be so nice and read your poem, it would be lovely.
Okay, I will begin. This poem was inspired by my repeated trips to the Portland Museum of Art, where there is a magnificent marble sculpture, The Dead Pearl Diver, by Benjamin Paul Aker. The Dead Pearl Diver, consigned by time, by village, tribe, by surname, to dive for pearls as his father and his father and his father before, to follow the lead of tides, to risk capricious currents, sudden storms, plunge and sow, to sight among the silt and undulant weed, the grainy, bony-handed shells, to draw a blade against scarcity, and thrusting, twisting, disengage them from their submerged pleasures. His labor to grasp and cage those prizes within the netted pouch worn round his waist, and he, breath measuring in mighty climbing strokes, was meant to rise, to surface triumphant within the mortal boundaries of air and space, lies lifeless now before us, blade abandoned by his side, his youth and labor's price in marble carved, immutable, no sun consigned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks again for contributing. And as you will see, as we go forward with the reading, the poems are so different, but so really unique and so enriching the magazine. Every year we are absolutely flabbergasted with the richness of the poetic imagination that
I'm very
we are.
grateful. I'm very grateful to Oberon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I thought that instead of behaving like a teacher, bad teacher in the classroom and calling everybody by name and nobody knows who's going to be called, I will read few names that will follow each other so that people can get prepared, right? So now we'll have Amy Haddad, then Wayne Manneke. If I'm mispronouncing names, please correct me later, right? Mary Moreno and Karen Rafael. These are the names that we will have in the nearest future. And if you could please also say a few words about you, where are you, and how you found our Oberon, it will be also lovely. Thank you very much. So I pass it to Amy Haddad. I hope you are unmuted. Yes.
I am. Thank you very much. And this is such a wonderful opportunity. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow.
And spring is here. So we're very glad. We had a very harsh winter, which kind of leads a little bit into my poem. It's called An Iris Blooms in November.
Page 69.
The warmth of Indian summer mimics spring, confuses and teases an iris into unfurling blue-black petals as the weather fast reverts to brittle skies, November gray. Lone among the green sword leaves, the bloom spills the woody perfume of May in the winter-worn garden. I am tempted to cut it, savor the scent a few more days, but I choose to leave it to die, safe among the intertwined roots where rebirth lies.
I'm sorry, I cannot unmute. You can see how people applaud and how they loved your poem, hopefully on the screen. Yes. But it would create too much chaos if I muted everybody. I hope by the next one we'll figure out how to do it so that people can enjoy the how much joy they give to others by reading their poems.
Thank you.
So now we'll have Wayne, page 76, then Mary, page 39, and Carolyn at 84, for those of you who have magazine in your hands, okay?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ludmila, and thank you to everybody at Oberon for selecting my poem for publication. I'm a teacher, a high school science teacher on Long Island, and this is my poem, Ode to Accidents. French philosopher Paul Virilio argued that invention generates its own accidents. Construction of the ship contains the shipwreck. Building an aircraft creates the plane crash. Generating electricity invites electrocution. But machinery also hides the blueprints for solutions to exceptional calamities, like when nature evolves a virus that conceals the mutation for its own vaccine. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You see, you have another example of what I said, how rich and how diverse is the poetry. And this is, I think, what makes us much better than New Yorker poetry or the others, because we really try to be open to very different ways of poetic expression. It's not like having the, well, okay, I won't say anymore and pass the voice to Mary Moreno, page 39.
Ludmila, just interruption just for a second. I sent in a note in the chat in case anything shuts down in the meeting, how to just reconnect again right away. You've got your echo on, okay? In
Yeah,
other words,
okay, we'll try to figure it out and
no,
stay
you don't have to
cool
read it, but
under
if something
pressure.
happens to the meeting, just read the chat and it'll tell you how to reconnect. I think it should be okay.
Okay, hopefully. Well, let's go on like if nothing happened. So what, who did I say? Mary, right? And I see that Kate Jordan is there, and she was before. So after Mary, and we had Carol and then Kate Jordan, okay?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am just delighted to be participating in this because I had been away from poetry for some years, and I just returned to writing it 2 years ago, and it's been helping me through. I am also a composer. I live in New York City, and I'm a composer as well, and I use my poetry now as a springboard for my compositions, and sometimes my compositions inspire the poem. So to me, music is poetry and poetry is music, and they're very intertwined. So my poem is called Slow Dance, and it was written very spontaneously on a December morning when I was missing my husband, my late husband, very badly. So here it is. Jupiter and Venus side by side in the December pre-dawn sky, poised like peaceful sentries to the portals of eternity. Eternal soulmates in silent contemplation of endless coming into being and passing away. Like us, they wait in quiet companionship. Nothing much to say except, here we are, and we always will be. You and I, slow dancing across the sky.
Again, I wish I could unmute everybody. Oh, thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you so much.
It's always such a pleasure to be able to put faces on people. You sort of read their poems and you try to imagine how the person looks. And this is one of those that I have to say, I sort of, that's how I imagined you. So we'll go through the, as I said, we'll follow with the people who are present. Now, people who did not send the emails that they wanted to read, but still are present and would like to read, will be able to do it. But after we do the segment on Claire's translation and from Hungarian, okay? So we'll have Kate Jordan, if she's with us. Can I hear you? I think she sent a message a moment ago.
Okay, I'm here now.
Yes, you are here. Okay. Kate, exactly. Kate or Kath?
Kathy.
Kathy. I'm sorry. See, this is, but Jordan is right?
Jordan
and
is
then
right.
we'll have Caroline, or did I mix it? First Caroline and then Kathy.
Okay, so first Carolina.
Okay, first Carolina then.
Okay, hello everybody. It's lovely to be with this lovely, fine group of poets at Oberon. I'm the poetry coordinator in Great Neck on Long Island, and I can say hello to Wayne, who won one of our contests a couple of years ago. Nice to see you, Wayne. At any rate, there's a wonderful play by Peter Shaffer called Lettuce and Lovage. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's old, from the 80s. And it's about it was with Maggie Smith, about a very bored tour guide who goes to a country house and starts making up all the facts because she's bored. So I started looking at tour guides, and I looked at one particular one in Florence, and she was bored out of her mind. So I wrote this little villanelle called Tour Guide's Lament, Florence, Italy, 2015. I lead my flock who ceaselessly complain about the coffee, crowds, the bus, the heat. With haloed smile, I comfort and explain that pasta is al dente here, domain of Chianti, white bean soup, and wine braised meat. I school my flock whose taste is so mundane. Raising my crook, red banner on a cane, I point out Brunelleschi's dome. They tweet. With hollow smile, I linger to explain the scaffold-free support built to maintain that massive weight. They only want to eat. I tolerate my flock, their sour refrain, the Tuscan bread is tasteless, that the rain is forming channels on the cobbled street. With frozen smile, I struggle to explain that since the ancient tax, bakers abstain from salt, and that the dewy air is sweet. I loathe my flock. They trigger a migraine. With twisted smile, I lecture through the pain. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
I think this time you could hear some reactions.
That's my fault.
No, that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful.
I just left myself unmuted, so I wouldn't forget.
Wonderful that it comes very handy right now because you're the next person. Page 79 if you have the magazine again.
I still don't have my magazine. I hope it comes.
They are, yeah, they absolutely will come.
They're coming. They are in the mail.
Thank you
You
so
heard
much.
Laura. Yep.
Great segue to thank everyone for all the hard work it took to get this magazine out and the dedication.
The love
Thank
of
you.
labor.
Thank you. Labor of love. Okay, I'm Kathy Jordan, and I live in Berkeley, California. And let's see, like Mary, I taught, well, I didn't like Mary, I don't know if she taught, but I taught choral music for 25 years. And I think music just filters right through the poetry. So since I retired, I have been just doing poetry. So just one second. Elliot. Okay, he's here, but not here. All right. So I wanted to just make a comment very quickly about this poem, and that's that I wrote it the very first week of our lockdown in California a year ago. And so it's very timely since I never realized we'd be having a 1-year anniversary. Who thought that we'd have a 1-year anniversary for our pandemic? So this poem's called Social Distancing. Stepping into another world, and then another, and still another. Uncertainty, no answers. Opening the refrigerator again. Same yogurt, charred cornbread. Is there enough? And for how long? What about the guy wrapped in plaid blanket, 100 years from here, 100 yards from here, sleeping in a doorway? Text, email, screen, battery, hollow shelves at Safeway. Smiling at strangers. We're in this together, yeah. Purple finch, black Phoebe, dawn chorus, sun peering over hills, clean, ready. Bright gleam from San Francisco towers. Red fox squirrel on bird seed pole. Someone running by. A whiff of soap. First hawthorn blossoms. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very, very much. There are some poems that sort of, you feel like pausing for a moment and letting it sinking in. But since our time is unfortunately, yeah, you get exactly what Vlada did on the screen. If you want to send a message, since you cannot speak up, you can write it to the poet. So thank you very much, Vlada, for doing it. So now I didn't introduce I don't think we have Arlen Reed among us. At least not when I checked last time. Therefore, I will ask as a next person, again, forgive me if I'm butchering your name, Jendi Reiter, then Saudamini Sigrist, and Jess Skylestone, in this order, okay? So is it Jendi?
Yes, you got it right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to be part of this community. Can you all hear me okay? Great. Thank you. Okay, so I am in Northampton, Massachusetts, and a poet and novelist and the editor of winningwriters.com, which is a writer's resource site that I hope you all check out. And this poem is included in my third book in progress called Made Man, which is exploring concepts of masculinity. And it is called A Tarantella. Forget the flounced myth, crocodile clock, lace wrist, flicked steel, prodding boy breeches off the plank to a tinkling tune. Be the jarred fairy, blinks attention length. Let flicker out remembrance of bedtime page, holiday screen, where comically I slashed at girl motherhood, but hooked merely myself in nursery curtain sales. Only the song's name is true, if truth be nothing but what's widely believed. And you might have been taught nothing's enough for star steering boys to dance on, aim at the ground and miss. And so Tarantella, slant named dance to shake out spider venom's fire from sailors' swelling limbs. Look how they caper, comical as insects fleeing a schoolboy's burning glass. Tell me you haven't done that. A second. How they prance like a boy before he's caught twirling to mother's music box hidden between iron dormitory beds. Clock tick instant that hangs like a captain's cabin mirror before the lurch of shipwreck. So many ways a boy can be made to fly through the air. It's nothing remarkable, really. The part you have to believe is that he never comes down. What's this poison I waltz with? Double time with feathered swoop